If you'd like to take your seats, please, we are ready to start. Hold on, because we have also broadcast, we have live streaming, so it's a little bit complicated with cameras, but Γιάννη, πιστεύω ότι εδώ καλά είναι, έτσι. So, welcome everybody, welcome back again in Syros, all the new friends in this 15 years of Animasyros Festival and 8 years of Animasyros AGORA. This year we have the pleasure to collaborate with Animasyros, which is a non-profit association, French. Animasyros stands for Nouvelle Écriture pour les films d'animation in France. And we have two excellent tutors who come from France, Xavier Kawatopor and Catherine Totems, who conduct this year pitching workshop. Besides the workshop, of course, we have presentations, master classes, works in progress, and all these activities is our main goal in order to networking, exchange ideas, meet each other, and create animation. So the last 2 years we started a new form of AGORA and festival by having a live streaming because of the COVID pandemic, and we're very happy because we see that our audience is growing due to this live streaming. So I want to say hello to all these people who are live now and who are watching us in YouTube Animasyros channel. That's all from me. I would like to welcome and give the floor to Xavier Kawatopor to present Animasyros. Please applaud Xavier. Welcome.
Your head, I'll wait to everything. I'll fall.
Okay. Shall I explain one more time? Yes? Or is it okay for you? Yeah, it's okay? The first time was okay? Okay, so.
Le mot beauté reflète beaucoup. Maintenant, tout est beau ici. On est en dehors du présent. On est dans un espace où le temps s'arrête. On est dans une ambiance d'intemporalité que dans mon expérience est très très stimulant.
I know that it was a very important religious center, and I know that it was a very strong prison.
Enfin, moi, je ne crois pas du tout aux fantômes, mais c'est vrai qu'on sent qu'il a été vécu dans ce lieu, quoi. Ça, c'est extraordinaire, quoi, d'être là, puis se dire « Ah, les portes sont fermées au public, mais moi, je peux déambuler dans l'abbaye en me racontant des histoires. »
Je vais vous dire, c'est vraiment comme on entend les voix de tous les personnages qui sont habités cette lieu magnifique. On entend ces histoires, c'est une lieu pleine d'histoires.
Toujours une marque de potentielle qualité que d'être accompagné par Fontevraud. Ça permet d'asseoir le projet, effectivement, de lui donner un confort de développement, c'est-à-dire que ça soit un peu financé et qu'on puisse vivre pendant qu'on travaille l'écriture. Sans cette aide, ça serait très différent, ça serait beaucoup plus compliqué, effectivement, d'être dans le processus de création.
There's fewer and fewer places like this that support film and animation in the way that it does. I think just having somewhere that gives you the space and the respect to explore things and to take your time and to develop things in a kind of non-commercial way, it's really valuable.
I think that the film could be completely different if I had developed the film in Buenos Aires or in my country. The spirit and the energy of this place was very important for the development of the project, because I came with a project that was totally different.
Presque chaque décor de mon film vient de la baie de Fontevraud. Je dis très souvent que si je n'étais pas ici, mon film ne serait jamais né. Je ne pourrais pas le faire sans cette résidence à un mois ici.
On échange beaucoup quand on travaille. Comme ils sont venus de différents pays, tout le monde a différentes cultures, différentes obsessions. Alors j'ai pu avoir beaucoup de réactions.
So, a few words about Fontevraud Abbey. Fontevraud is a village in the west of France, in the Loire Valley, a tourist region known for its castles, its wine, and the Loire River, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Abbey de Fontevraud is a major monument in French history. It was founded in the 12th century to receive nuns and religious. After restoration work, the Abbey became a cultural and touristic center. It welcomes 200,000 visitors each year. Its architecture is remarkable. Here you can see the large cloister, the refectory, the kitchen, the garden, the church, with the tomb of famous people such as Aliénor d'Aquitaine, the grandmother of Olivier, Queen of France and of England. As a cultural center, the Abbey organizes concert, exhibition. It's also an hotel and a modern art museum. As you can see, Fontevraud Abbey is a very inspiring place for artists. I myself was the director of Fontevraud Abbey for 8 years, and having previously worked in Paris in Forum des Images, I created the animation film residency at Fontevraud, more than 15 years ago. The Fontevraud residency is based on a simple principle: to offer artists time and an inspiring place to write their next film in good condition. Indeed, in the process of creating an animated film, the research, writing, and development phase is very important. The quality of the film is often determined at this stage. That's why we created this residence. So what are the conditions of the residency? The residency is open to all animation filmmakers, beginners or not, who have a personal project. The artists are welcomed for 1 month at Fontevraud Abbey. The accommodation and the studio are made available to them free of charge. They also received a grant. The accommodation includes a single room in the Abbey and a sharing living space for all residents. The workshop is also located at the Abbey. It is a large space that allows everyone to exalt themselves. It favors concentration while allowing exchanges. Sorry, I go too far. So, if you don't understand my French English, you can read. Maybe it's clearer, okay? So, you have all is explained here. So the residency is above all a place of retreat, far from the demands of everyday life, a place that inspires by its history, its architecture, its cultural activities, a place to meet other artists. It's very important for us in residence from other countries, a place for creation. Here you can see some slide of different artists we welcomed, like Solveig von Kleist from Germany, and you can say his own way to create and to write his films, her film. That's Cristobal Leon and Joaquim Cochila from Chile. They work together in a very large place. That's Marianne Turcotte from Canada. She drew our storyboard and she write a script, and she also make research about the technique she want to use. Ainsley Anderson from Scotland, stop motion research. What is very important that the residents are very free to work as they want. There is no coaching, and they are very free to work or not. But in reality, they work a lot because it's very precious for them to have freedom and a lot of time and good situation, place to work. After the residency, artists must send us a written report of their residency. When the film is finished, we ask them only to put the logo of the residency in the end credits. This is the only contractual obligation. We want to keep in touch with them, to follow their artistic career and to help them to be invited in festival and elsewhere. Sorry, I'm lost. The result, as you can see, we received artists from a lot of countries. The residency has welcomed 350 artists of 45 different nationalities. It changed between now and the film you first have seen. 60% are women and 40% men. That shows the preponderant share of women in contemporary creation in animation. We received very famous directors such Gianluigi Tocafondo, Koji Yamamura, Florence Mihai, as well as young directors who came to read their first film. Around 200 films have come out of the residence of Fontevraud, and as you can see, they won a lot of prizes. Here you can see some of those films, short or feature film, or each format is possible. And we also publish books in French and English and DVDs to promote the film written in the residence. Now, maybe you would like to know how to apply. Pardon, sorry, Apple is here. But it's for you too. It's special for you too. Nef Animation organizes three residency sessions each year. 2 international sessions in April and October, and 1 session reserved to young French authors in August, devoted to the specific program called En sortant de l'école. Each session welcomes between 8 and 12 residents. It is possible to apply as an individual by responding to the call for project of the Nef Animation website. The application file includes a letter of motivation, a CV, and a presentation of the project. It could be a very short presentation because we choose the project in the beginning of the writing process. A jury meets twice a year to select the residents. The artistic quality of the project is essential. It is not necessary to have a producer. It is not necessary to present a financial plan for the film. We also have partnership with certain countries. Okay. Yeah, it's better when it's. Okay. So, just the last minute to say a few words about NEF Animation. NEF Animation is also NEF Animation was created 7 years ago to further develop the Fontevraud residency and implement new projects. NEF Animation stands for Nouvelles Écritures pour le film d'animation. It is, as I said, a professional association dedicated to research and creation in the field of animation film. Today it organizes the Fontevraud residency program. NEF co-organizes the Meknes residency in Morocco for French-speaking authors of animated films. NEF leads the international collective of animation residencies, which now has 12 members in France, Belgium, Denmark, Morocco, and Quebec. NEF organizes also the Fontevraud professional meetings every year in October, which brings together professionals to discuss artistic creation. NEF organizes workshops with major international directors. You can see Mikhail Dudok-de-Witt and Isao Takahata and other very famous filmmaker on the screen. And it publishes the magazine Bling Blanc. Bling Blanc is a French-speaking magazine dedicated to the art of animation, edited with the Cinémathèque Québécoise. There is 2 issues each year. Talks about actuality of films and series and all production. Maybe Gintz is here, I don't know. It's new project. We made an interview. And we also speak about old film and retrospective and les métiers, les différents métiers de l'animation, profession of animation, and work in progress of next project and so on. So to finish, I have to thank the CNC, Centre National du Cinéma in France, the French Ministry of Culture and the region of Pays de la Loire, and our private partners who help us. And if you need more information, I will be happy to answer to your question with the help of my interpret and my daughter. And of course you can see our website. There is an English version, perfect English version, and you can contact us at this address mail. So thank you a lot.
Thank So thank you very much for this presentation, and I would like to add that this year the winner of the pitching in Animasyros will spend 1 month in Fontenevraud. Now that you are familiar with the Abbey of Fontenevraud, you can understand that it's a big prize. So, if you have any question, I would like Liv to come here, so she will help us with the translation.
That's not her profession. She's an
No,
artist.
she's
She first an artist, and she is very helpful for me.
Liv, yeah, I would like to. Français, peut-être?
En anglais, ça va, je
En
pense.
anglais, okay. So I would like to ask, you said there are no coaching during the residency, but how the creators, they bring their projects, right? And then, because we saw in the interview, there are people saying, oh, we have changed completely our ideas, being there, working there, but is this because of the environment, or is this because they got some guidance de quelconque?
Oui. Alors, pour être précis, en général, il n'y a pas d'accompagnement, mais dans certains cas, notamment dans le cas de partenariat avec des partenaires qui le demandent, et pour des pays où il y a par exemple pas ou d'école d'animation, nous pouvons faire un accompagnement spécifique. Mais la philosophie générale, c'est pas d'accompagnement. Sorry.
So most of the time there is no coaching, but in some specific circumstances, for example, partnership with countries where there is no animation school, we can provide some coaching.
Mais pour répondre à ta question, nous créons les conditions qui vont aider les auteurs à cheminer. C'est-à-dire que nous faisons confiance, les auteurs que nous sélectionnons, nous les choisissons parce que nous pensons qu'ils sont dans la bonne direction et qu'il n'y a qu'à leur donner les bonnes conditions pour poursuivre. Et les bonnes conditions, c'est le lieu, c'est le temps, et c'est aussi le fait qu'ils sont ensemble à l'abbaye. Je vais continuer.
Most of the time we are choosing filmmakers that we trust on the fact that they can follow their path and with the good condition that we provide, so the environment, the Abbaye de Fontevraud, and also being together with other filmmakers, they will find their way and and through creativity.
En réalité, ils discutent beaucoup entre eux, ils échangent, et très librement parce qu'ils sont entre réalisateurs. Et puis, nous sommes aussi là, rien n'est obligatoire, mais parfois, ils ont besoin d'un point de vue extérieur, et donc, moi ou un de mes collègues passe du temps avec eux, donnant juste un point de vue extérieur qui les aide.
So all the filmmakers, they have a lot of discussion and they can share a lot, and so those discussions help them and they can grow together through sharing together, and sometimes they need an outside perspective that we can give them, so me or one of my colleagues, we can coach him, but like really subtly.
Yes, and I continue. I don't know if there is, yes. And then I'll ask something.
It's not really a question, it's more a comment from a producer point of view. Because some years ago, it was a long time ago, I had a resident in Fontevraud as a producer. It was a Chinese director, Chen Chen.
Yeah.
So, I remember that we applied to a film fund before the residency, and he was selected for an interview, the second round, and he had the residency between both, and then we changed about the residency. He said, okay, I'm doing the storyboards, and after a few days he said, I'm searching new designs, and so he sent me something completely different design. And then, okay, you can say, okay, you have new ideas for design, but maybe it's better to present both designs, the old one, because you applied with it. And so it was going on like that, but he said, no, there is no big changes, just a few changes. So we went to the interview at the end, and it was completely a different project, completely new design and new stories, same characters, but really new stories, and it was very perturbating. So this kind of things can happen because they have a full month, and I learned from that I have to be more intrusive.
Oui, la remarque est très importante. C'est entre le producteur et le réalisateur, lorsqu'il y a un producteur, de savoir quel lien doit être gardé. Nous, on n'intervient pas, mais effectivement, comme tu le soulignes, on a des cas où les réalisateurs partent très loin dans une autre direction.
Maybe it's...
Il faut que tu t'éloignes peut-être un petit peu. Non?
It's before the residency, the producer and the filmmaker have to make a deal on what is supposed to stay and what can change, and because sometimes there is a lot of difference between the initial project and what came out at the end of the residency.
C'est tout. Non. Il y a une question.
It's okay? Yeah. I have a twofold question. The first is, other than accommodation and staying there and the ability to work there, do the artists have access to infrastructure, equipment, and what kind of financial support do you provide? I understand it's small, but curious to find out. But more importantly, what I'm interested to find out is how such an organization can remain sustainable. Where do you receive your funding? Is it private donors? Is it government funds? Is it European funds? I would be very interested to find out how can you have a sustainable approach in keeping this going. Thank you.
La première question est de savoir, est-ce que les artistes sur place ont accès à des équipements particuliers, des facilités, des documents ou même de l'équipement? Est-ce qu'il y a une compensation financière qui est prévue? Et ensuite, comment est-ce qu'un tel modèle peut exister? D'où viennent les fonds? Est-ce que ce sont des fonds publics du gouvernement? Et comment est-ce qu'un modèle comme ça peut rester viable?
Oui. Donc la première question, non, il y a ni matériel particulier, ni documentation, ni archives particulières. Il y a juste un très bon accès à Internet et les résidents viennent avec leur propre matériel.
So the third thing is there is no specific equipment or documentation there. There is just a good internet connection, and the residents come with their own equipment.
C'est surtout la qualité particulière du lieu qui est importante.
What is the most important thing is the inner quality of the place.
Pour la deuxième question, donc notre règle, c'est de prendre en charge les frais de transport, de mettre à disposition le lieu d'hébergement, l'atelier, et de donner aussi à l'artiste une bourse qui lui permet, qui équivaut à un salaire minimum pour un mois. La philosophie, c'est qu'il vient à Fontevraud et ça ne lui coûte rien. Il peut continuer à payer la location, par exemple, de son appartement. Il n'y a pas de déficit.
Okay, so our philosophy is to pay for the transportation, to provide, how do you say that? To provide,
Location? Studio?
is to pay for the transportation, to provide a studio and a place to live, and also each resident receive a fund that is equivalent to the minimum wage in France, and that allows them to continue to pay their rent wherever they live. And the philosophy is that it doesn't cost anything to the artist to be there. And yeah. Anything else?
Les financements, parce qu'il y avait une question sur les financements. Les financements viennent principalement de deux sources. Sur nos propres appels à candidature, nous avons des financements qui viennent de nos partenaires publics, le Centre national du cinéma, le ministère de la Culture et la région.
Okay, so the funding, they come from two main sources. One is government
Centre national du cinéma, national.
Government institutions, so the National Cinema Center of France, and also the cultural minister.
La région.
And the state, region, depends on the country. So.
Et pour les projets qui viennent que nous choisissons avec des partenaires, nous cherchons à chaque fois, les partenaires cherchent un financement spécifique. Il y a souvent les instituts français qui nous aident, par exemple, à faire venir des étrangers en France.
And for the project that we have, for the partnership that we have with partners, the partners are looking for the fundings for their own residents. And most of the time it's French institutions abroad that can help us having foreigners resident.
Il y a aussi une société SACD, qui est une société, société qui gère les droits d'auteur.
I don't know how to translate that.
It is the Artists Copyright Society that also help in funding.
La dernière question, donc comment un système comme celui-là fonctionne. En fait, nous avons eu la chance de pouvoir développer ce projet à l'intérieur d'un projet plus vaste qui était, lorsque je dirigeais l'abbaye de Fontevraud, c'était une petite partie simplement du projet de Fontevraud, donc je n'ai pas eu de compte à rendre tout de suite sur l'efficacité de ce projet. Et quand j'ai eu besoin d'aller chercher des financements, au bout de 7 ans, j'ai pu dire, regardez, nous pouvons choisir des projets sans avoir d'obligation de producteur, sans avoir d'obligation de modèle économique, en choisissant simplement, mais en étant très exigeant sur les qualités artistiques, et ça fonctionne. Parce que lorsqu'on présente effectivement le nombre de films qui sont faits et le nombre de prix, effectivement, on voit que notre système est efficace.
So about the sustainability of the project, I'm sorry that sentence was very long. The first thing is that we had the chance to develop the residency project inside a bigger project that was a cultural center of the Abbaye de Fontevraud, and so we had the freedom of taking our times to be sustainable, because it was just a little part of the project, and then 7 years later, when we had to find fundings, we could say, look, this project is sustainable and it's worth it, because look, at all the prices that we got with the resident, and also because we choose very wisely the person that are in the residency with the quality of the project, and so it's worth it.
Okay, fine. Bravo.
Thank you. I also have a question, like if a director who wants to come has already got funding from the CNC or from another.
Les financements du CNC viennent à la nef, et la nef fait ce qu'elle veut avec. Ça ne va pas directement à l'auteur, donc c'est pas un problème.
The CNC fundings, oh, you understood what you said. So it goes to the NEF and then it's working.
Okay, but then another question, like not all directors or writers are working on their script and the artistic side. So can they come with two, like the director and an artistic creator? Is it possible or is it only one person?
Alors, c'est possible dans certains cas, et vous avez devant vous une personne, Mauro, qui va venir en octobre et ils seront deux. Voilà. Dans certains cas, c'est possible lorsque le projet le nécessite vraiment. Et si nous avons assez de place. Voilà.
So in certain cases it's possible. For example, Mauro that will come in October.
Bien octobre. Mauro.
In October with another person, and so it's possible in certain cases, and when we have the room for it.
Okay, we have the time just for one last question. You want no?
J'entends pas en fait.
Est-ce que
No, they come together. 8 or 12 persons, but they come together. It's very important for us because the meeting between us, the exchanges between filmmakers are very important. So we started with just one person. It was in December. It was Florence Miaille for La Traversée. It was a very great experience, but a very hard experience for us to spend 1 month alone in Fontevraud in December. After we had the idea to put them together, and that's important. So that's why there is 3 sessions each year. One just for specific for a young French filmmaker in August, and the international residencies has 2 sessions in April and in October, and they come 1 month all together. Often they don't know, la plupart du temps ils ne se connaissent pas les uns les autres.
Most of the time they don't know each other.
Et ils viennent de pays différents, donc avec des cultures de l'animation, des façons d'envisager l'animation qui sont totalement différentes et qui sont très enrichissantes aussi.
And most of the time they come from very different countries with a very different animation culture and way to see it. It's making very interesting exchanges.
Last question. Is there any digital library where all these projects are uploaded?
Elle me demandait s'il y avait un endroit où il y avait tous les projets qui étaient...
S'il y a une bibliothèque en ligne.
No.
Or are you thinking
non.
to create something like that?
Sur le site, you just can see the name and the year and the name of the project. But we decided not to yes, because the filmmaker don't like that, because the project change and the film change, and sometimes someone asks us, is it possible to see that project? And we ask the filmmaker to have his permission just for one case.
So, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Liv. Stay with us. We go on with our next panel. It's a very interesting discussion about from graphic novels to animation. So we just want a few minutes to set up the place and have our guest on stage. to present Yannis Lolis, who is always, behind his computer, and he's my friend, associate, I don't know, he's always with me in the hard times, creating, having the best ideas. When I'm completely blocked, he says, we'll do that, don't worry. And thank you so much, Yanni.
Thank you very much.
So, you present the panel, please?
Yes. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for being back here. We have a really exciting panel with us just now. Graphic novels to animated films. And I was going through my little cheat sheet here before I let Elias take over the panel. I just wanted to make a brief introduction. So we have 3 projects that deal with graphic novels and animation, and we're lucky that all 3 of them are in different, are slightly different in the way that they're being treated. We have with us Marleen Spy from the Netherlands, who is actually working on an animated film, Sisters of the Mist, that she's sort of turning simultaneously into a graphic novel. We have with us Tigran Arakelian from Armenia, who's working in taking somebody else's graphic novel and turning it into an animated film as a director. And we have with us Fermin Solis from Spain, who created a graphic novel that was taken by another director and turned into a feature film. It's actually presented in the film festival this year, Bonuel in the Labyrinth of Turtles. And all of that will make even more sense when it's presented by our moderator, Elias Katerzianoglu, who is a journalist, a publisher. He's one of the founders of the longest running comics festival in Athens called Comic Dome Con Athens. He's himself a scriptwriter as well, and he'll help us moderate this panel. And I just wanted to say that with us, we also have the pleasure of having the help of our volunteer, Manos Mastorakis, who is a long-term supporter of the festival. He has this wonderful store called Chimera, an art and craft store in Syros, close to Apollon Theater. And he gladly sort of volunteered to help us with translation for Fermin, so that we make sure we have all the information we need. So with that, I'll give it over to Elias to get us started. Thank you.
All right. Welcome all. My name is Elias Katerzianoglu, and I'm a Greek comics writer and publisher. As Yanni said, as well as one of the organizers of Comic Con Athens, the oldest comic book convention in Athens, Greece. Today we are going to discuss with our guests how the storytelling structure and visual layout of a graphic novel combines with the fluid animation of a cartoon. Let's start by getting to know the participants of this panel discussion, and after each presentation, discuss with each of them their respective works. First of all, we welcome Tigran Arakelian from Armenia. Tigran is an illustrator and director. Can you tell us some things about your professional experience and your projects?
Hello, my name is Tigran. I am from Armenia. I present feature animation film Zako, which is based on a graphic novel. We have I think, can have some visual for continue. Okay. I take this story, I start to work on this story like animation film because I want to mention few points. First is a very specific graphic novel for Armenia because we have many stories which is based on a historical or story which is not a real person from our side, but this story is a person who connected with us and connected with our period of life. So Zako is an Armenian painter who burned and died with Soviet Union, and this story bring to life his son, Tigran Mangasaryan, who is the artist of this book. This story touched me because it's have some parallel with my own experience in my life. But it's not the same because here is a very extra period of the story happening in Second World War, and we are seeing how the artist trying to keep his humanity by drawing, by art, and keep his life and come back to home. So story about this, and this story very touched me. Second part, why interested this story me, because when I was to university, I meet Tigran Mangasaryan. It's 2009. This first our meeting when I see how he started work on this book. This is the first graphic novel where I see how the artist start work from beginning and see how he start draw illustration of the characters and pages, and after many years when becoming the friend, it's for me it's very important to tell this story into the animation style because it's from my own experience with it.
Thank you. Thank you. And our next panel participant is Dutch director, writer, and storyboard artist Marleen Spy. Welcome, Marleen. Can you also tell us some things about your professional experience and your projects?
Yes, so my name is Marleen Spy. I started as a character animator and then moved to storyboard artist, and then I've always wanted to do my own stories and my own projects. And this project that I'm here to present is called Sisters of the Mist. And it's a story that's based on the relationship with my own sister. So it's a very personal story. And I've been developing it for quite a while now, actually. But it started as an idea for a feature film. So it's a story that I really wanted to tell. And because I come from an animation background, it was very logical for me to, okay, I'm going to make an animated feature film. That's always been my goal. And while I was developing the story, it's set in the Netherlands. It's in the region that I grew up in. It's called Twente. It's a really beautiful rural area. So there's a lot of local folklore that's into the story, and it's really interwoven into it. But then during this process of developing it, I thought it would be really nice to also have a book, because it's an original story and it doesn't really have an audience yet. The idea of making a graphic novel or a book out of it would really seem like a nice way to already find your audience and then connect with an audience before you make it into a feature film, because feature films, as everyone probably knows, is such a long endeavor. It can take 10 years. So that's how it really moved from the feature into a graphic novel, and it started developing simultaneously. So I was working on the feature film, and I was also working on the graphic novel, and then working on the feature again. So it's kind of a strange process, but it's also interesting because it really, both of the storylines kind of influenced each other very heavily. But of course there's differences, but I won't get into the details too much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we welcome Fermin Solis, Spanish cartoonist, animator, and illustrator. Can you also tell us some things about your professional experience and your projects?
Bueno, antes de nada quería dar las gracias al festival y a toda la organización por su amabilidad para invitarme al Festival de Siros, que es muy fantástico, darles la enhorabuena. Muy bien, pues yo me dedico al mundo del cómic, de la ilustración y de la novela gráfica. He escrito muchos libros para niños, también los he ilustrado, pero también me dedico al mundo del cómic para adultos, con obras como Buñuel en el laberinto de las tortugas o Medea a la deriva, que es mi última obra. Algunas de ellas se han adaptado al cine y otras están en proceso de adaptación.
I want to thank you very much for your invitation. My journey in graphic novel has started years ago. I have made a lot of graphic novels, children books, adult comics, and also the graphic novel. You will see the movie adapted tonight. Thank you again for your invitation, and please proceed.
Thank you very much. Let's start with a question for the three of you. What are the main challenges when adapting a graphic novel concerning the storytelling structures and the visual layouts of the two mediums? Let's start with Tigran.
I think it's a very interesting part of our work, because when you translate it from one medium to another, you need starting thinking a little bit different. For example, in a book, Tigran Mangasaryan have documentary photos and have a discussion with his father, which we are taking out. This is from storytelling side. And story we are trying to keep more with one line. So we're trying to show two reality. One is a military camp, second one is a village in Armenia. So we change and add some character there for keep the idea, but trying to do something else. From graphic side, it's very interesting also, because we trying to keep that but push a little bit forward, and we bring that graphic style into the VR animation technique, and we have some experiment with them. Now we have a small teaser what we can see here. It's give us the chance to keep hand draw illustration but into the three-dimensional space and give another level of the graphics. So we can see the teaser. It's very short, I think.
Zako. That is how the German soldiers used to call me in the concentration camp, where I ended up after joining the Soviet Red Army. While in captivity, I had to paint my torturers and their wives in order to survive. Hoping to see my home again.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question to see what the differences are between when you make a film and when you make a book. And since I got to do a book for the first time, I really ran into a lot of things that were like new for me, so that was really interesting. So I had a storyline written for the film. We were at treatment phase, I think, and it was already quite elaborate. So there's a lot of there's a B plot line, and there were a lot of side characters. So when I got a chance to do the book, I really had to rewrite the story and take out a lot of the extra storylines to compress it. So because the book is well, it's 130 pages, and if I would have adapted the storyline that was written for the feature film, it would have been a book of 300 pages probably. So, and I think for the book, I decided to go for a more classical folklore narrative because it felt more appropriate to do that in a book than to stick more to the 3-act story structure that you have for a feature film. So in the book there's a halfway point where the girls stay in the forest. So there's a lot of characters that are written out of the story for the book. There's basically Kira, the main character, she tries to prevent her sister from going up. So she doesn't want to lose her sister to these mist folklore creatures. And then in the feature film, she goes on this really long adventure where she really learns a lot about all the folklore creatures that live in the forest. And in the book, there just was a very different story structure that was told in a very different way to kind of keep the storyline going and keep it much more compressed. And one of the things that was really new to me was that there's no sound, there's no music, there's no voice acting. So I had to be a lot more explicit when I was drawing, which was very interesting because I was just drawing and sketching and developing stuff. And then there's this page in the beginning of the book where it's like, I wrote in the script, I think, deafening whiteness. So there's swirls of mist, and I was drawing swirls of mist, and then the editor from the publisher said, yeah, you have to show what's so scary, because I was so used to relying on the music and the sound to make it scary. So if it's supposed to be scary, you have to show what's actually so scary. This is, by the way, all concept art from the film, so it's maybe a bit, but so that was really interesting for me to, I really had to become much more explicit in what I was drawing, whereas in film I'm more subtle and I try to rely much more on the music and the voice acting to help the atmosphere. Yeah.
At the comic book, did you use written sounds like stuff like that?
Yeah, I had to, but it was weird. And now when I look at the book, there's a lot of points where I think it could have used more of that, because it's really like there's this point where one of the sisters falls into the water and there's no splash written in and it happens off screen. So it's really like a typical film type of storytelling where something happens off screen and then you have a reveal shot. And I was doing that in a graphic novel, and if I look at it now, it doesn't really work. It's really funny.
All right, and Fermin?
Yo que vengo de un mundo narrativo bastante diferente al del cine, que es el del cómic, es cierto que son lenguajes muy diferentes. Y la primera vez que vi en movimiento los personajes de mi cómic, de Buñuel en el laberinto de las tortugas, era como ver algo completamente distinto. Sí, la narrativa que yo utilizo para el cómic parte de un proyecto bastante anárquico. En el lenguaje cinematográfico se trabaja en unas estructuras muy férreas, muy cerradas, y en el lenguaje del cómic, en mi caso, es todo más aleatorio, más arbitrario. Trabajo mucho con la improvisación en el mundo del cómic, y en el mundo del cine y de la animación todavía más. Eso es inviable, no se puede improvisar en la animación. ¿Quieres que esté ahí?
So he finds the word of very different, the word between the comics and the animation films. The narrative of his comics is more like it has more like anarchy, when the films, animation film, must have more structure, and and one must follow that.
Yo cuando hago una novela gráfica parto de una frase corta, y esa frase corta luego se convierte en un guión de 4 páginas, de 5 páginas, y después de un storyboard voy haciendo la narración ya de la página final. Y en una revisión puede cambiar eso, y esas 4 páginas convertirse en 10. Cuando hemos hecho una película, como el proceso pasa por muchas manos y tiene que pasar por diferentes fases de animación, todo tiene que estar mucho más cerrado y más estructurado. Entonces creo que esa para mí es la mayor diferencia.
So when he does a graphic novel, he starts with a phrase which can evolve and take 5 pages or more. When he has to adapt that, or has to be adapted to animation film, a lot of different people have to process that. So it may be smaller or even bigger. So this is the biggest difference for him, that one person will have the idea and will structure it as he really thinks.
I have a supplementary question about the anarchy that you mentioned before. Does it have to also to do with the panel composition?
Sí, la composición de la página viene, yo la estructuro siempre trabajo con un mínimo de 4 viñetas y un máximo de 8. Y la estructura de esas páginas viene un poco en función de la narración. Y si necesito ralentizar la historia, incluyo muchas viñetas, y si quiero que la historia vaya más rápida, incluyo 1 o 2 viñetas por página rompiendo el ritmo. Pero eso no lo tengo en un papel, no lo tengo escrito con un guión exterior, día, esta es la acción que sucede, sino que lo tengo en mi cabeza. Es algo que surge de una forma espontánea. Y esa es la anarquía a la que me refiero, porque es una cosa espontánea que me lo da el tiempo, la experiencia y muchos años haciendo novela gráfica.
Okay, so normally during the graphic novel, the design has to do with the images per page that are mostly 4 to 8, and sometimes when he's just thinking of his graphic novel, they may be not in this number but quite different. That it's still not written, but it's just in his mind, so spontaneity is the kind of anarchy he promotes.
Thank you, guys. Another question for the 3 of you. About the animation scene in your country, would you say it's a flourishing one? Are there any programs funded by the state for the financial support of animated projects? Marlene?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the comic industry in the Netherlands because this is my first book. But for the animation industry, there's funding from the Dutch Film Fund. I would say that the industry is flourishing at the moment. I hope it stays that way because we've had some rough years due to some virus. I don't really know the name anymore. So I hope there's not going to be massive tax cuts by the Dutch government when everything goes down. Anyway, so there is funding, and I think the Netherlands is becoming more and more a country where international co-productions are happening. Actually, the film Buñuel was a co-production between Spain and the Netherlands. But it really depends on what you're doing. For example, making short films is still really, really difficult. There is funding, but it's not a lot. So you can make films, but it kind of depends on what you want to do. And I think overall it's easier to get a feature film funded than really the short films. So I think there's a difference between those projects. So the industry in the Netherlands is flourishing on the streaming side as well, but really the more artistic art house short film projects, it's a struggle, yeah.
Sí, thank you. Fermín?
Bueno, no hace falta, gracias. En mi país, bueno, yo me dedico más a la parte creativa que a la parte de producción y no puedo contestar muy fielmente a la parte de conseguir esas subvenciones, esas ayudas. En mi país hay una ayuda general que para realizar cortometrajes o largometrajes, y luego en mi país hay diferentes comunidades autónomas que también ofrecen ayudas al desarrollo de guión y desarrollo de largometrajes. Yo puedo hablar desde el punto de vista de un dibujante de cómics que en España nos faltan esas ayudas a los dibujantes, novelistas gráficos para desarrollar nuestro trabajo. Es decir, poder trabajar un año en un proyecto sin dedicarnos a hacer otro tipo de ilustración o de libro ilustrado, carteles, etcétera. Eso es lo que ahora estamos demandando, que esas ayudas que se dan para el cine en España también se den para los novelistas gráficos y poder trabajar en un proyecto desahogadamente durante un tiempo.
So, in Spain, where Fermin is from, you can have either a central funding or you can have local funding from the community. So, he's mostly in the creative part, so he thinks it's a production matter to find the funding about the animation films. As a graphic designer, a graphic novelist that he is, he says that there is local support for the graphic designers, so they can dedicate to their work and not having to do another work to support their graphic design job.
That's great. And Tigran?
From animation side, I can say we have a two-part, which one is a short film, which is mostly is easy to work. For a source, funding source, we have two main sources. One is a National Cinema Center, and second one is public television. So they are trying to support how they can, but for a feature film, it's very hard in Armenia to work and found all budget or mostly, and we are going to find co-production and trying to have a partnership. I think it's as in Europe always, and find ways to work. For example, last feature animation film where I'm working, AGORA Sunrise, which is a done Armenian, Lithuanian, and German co-production. So from animation side, this for graphic novels, it's a little bit different because I think we don't have separate funding from government. There's always happening like artists trying to find the financial from different funds and programs. It's a little bit from different side.
About the EU, European Union programs, are there some programs that include Armenia as a third partner or something like that?
Armenia partnering with Eurimage, so we are a part of Eurimage, so we can have a financial from there. So that's give a chance to do feature animation films in Armenia also.
I see, thank you. Now some specific questions to each one of you. Let's start with Fermin. Your graphic novel, Buñuel in the Labyrinth of the Turtles, depicts a decisive moment in the life of the great Spanish filmmaker Luis Buñuel. The moment when he doubted surrealism and contemplating embracing a more social type of cinema. Why did you choose to show this specific time period in the life of the director?
Sí, bueno, la historia de Buñuel en el laberinto de las tortugas recoge ese momento en el que Luis Buñuel estaba perdido porque había dejado ya un poco de lado el mundo del surrealismo y estaba buscando hacer otro tipo de cine. Por eso el título del laberinto no hace solamente mención a la forma que tienen las construcciones del pueblo urbano, que es muy laberíntico, sino también al interior de Buñuel, esa no encontrar lo que él quería hacer. Entonces, ese momento en concreto, hice un viaje por las Urdes. Las Urdes es un territorio, una región que está muy cerca de donde yo vivo. Está prácticamente a 1 hora de Cáceres, mi ciudad, y no la conocía. Y al viajar allí descubrí una figura de Luis Buñuel, una estatua que nadie quería tener, ni en la Casa de Cultura, ni en la biblioteca, ni en ningún sitio, porque pensaban que Buñuel había hecho una película para reírse y hacer burla a los urdanos. Entonces empecé a investigar y de ahí surgió la idea de hacer el making of de la película Buñuel en el laberinto de las tortugas y el rodaje de las Urdes Tierra sin pan.
He thinks that he chose exactly that moment of Buñuel's life to describe, because at this moment Buñuel was quite lost. He just left surrealism and he was embracing a social type cinema. So this is the labyrinth, one part of the labyrinth in the title of the movie, because he was really lost. And also the labyrinth refers to the city of Surdes. It's a city very near his Fermin's hometown, Cáceres. So he actually never visited for many years, and once he did, he bumped into a statue of Luis Buñuel. It was in a very random place because nobody wanted it, not the town hall or the museums or the local authorities. He started asking why that's happening, and actually nobody liked, let's say, Buñuel in this place, because he had made a movie some years ago called Surdes, Tierra sin Pan, that was depicting a very poor society. So he started investigating and documented and started imagining what was going on with Buñuel, and please keep on.
Como digo, Buñuel rompió con el movimiento surrealista para hacer cine social. La gente de las Urdes no entendió el mensaje que él quería dar de ayuda, haciendo una crítica al gobierno de la Segunda República de España, haciendo un documental sobre la situación que se vivía en un territorio de España donde había mucha pobreza. Mucha gente dice que por qué fue a las Urdes y no por qué no fue a otras regiones de España o de Europa. Y él quería desmitificar un viaje que hizo el rey unos años antes prometiendo colegios, hospitales, carreteras, y nunca cumplió, y porque había leído un escrito de un francés, de Maurice Legendre, hablando sobre las Urdes, donde decían que sus habitantes vivían en cavernas como seres bastante grotescos, o casi como animales. Y eso le llevó a las Urdes, a Buñuel, a hacer esa película, de la que no dejó nada escrito en sus memorias ni en ningún sitio. Eso me permitió a mí desarrollar e inventar esa forma de ver las Urdes y hacer esa película.
Buñuel, when he embraced the social cinema, he was criticizing the government decisions, so through his movies, of course. So why he picked Surdes? Because years ago the Spanish king visited the place, giving promises that were never fulfilled. So that was one part of the critic. And also there was a French writer where when he wrote, he described the place of Surdes as a place where only peasants lives in caves, so quite a wild place. And he thought that that would be a very good background for his story.
Thank you. And Tigran, regarding your project Zarko, why did you decide to adapt this specific graphic novel? Was it a personal favorite? Was it a theme that appealed to you, its visuals, or something else?
Let's have two general things. First is a visual. I think it's very strong. There's have a very strong visual for artistic side, and Tigran Mangasaran make something different. What I see, and from story side, it's very interesting because it's that event happening in Second World War, but that is not a concentration camp, and that is a military camp. We have many stories and films about concentration camp and what happening there, but this is about one soldier, which is just a painter who come there not with his choose. He be there with the pressure of the system where he's living. So that from that side, it's very interesting for me, because they tell a story about artists who trying to keep his life into the hell and trying to keep his humanity. So from that side, it's very strong message for this time of our life, because we are all see what happening in the world, and how and we wanna again talk about that. No one not win a war. Everyone is lose, because everyone lose. People who live there and lose art and lose a humanity. So from that side, interesting the story for me.
I say thank you. And Marlene, you're adapting your own graphic novel as an animated film. What are the challenges of adapting your own work in a different medium? And do you have any projection on its future release?
Well, technically I'm not really adapting a graphic novel, so it's a bit strange, because the projects have been developing alongside one another. So it started from the one storyline that was the starting point, and then I adapted a version of the story to a graphic novel.
There was an exchange.
It was an exchange, so
All
it's and it was really crazy, because it was going back and forth between the two. For example, I did all the layouts. Sorry, I did all the layouts for the book, and then Iris van Hasselt, she's the coloring artist who did all the beautiful watercolors. She started coloring the book, and then while she was doing that, I went back to rewriting the script and working with the concept artist Loish on the concept art for the feature film. So it was really, I don't recommend anyone doing this, by the way. It's very confusing. So
That's
I
what
had
I was
like
going
a,
to say. It sounds
yeah,
very
it was.
difficult.
So I had like a way to divide it for myself. So I was writing for the feature film in Dutch, and then I was working on the graphic novel in English. So kind of the language divide helped not mess everything up too much. But I think in hindsight, it was a really confusing way of working, and I think like when the graphic novel was finished, I really had to take a break from the whole project, and then I could kind of like let it rest for a bit. And these are first me trying to figure out how to do a graphic novel. So these are really early sketches, and it was nice to adapt something that I had already been working on in a team. So for the feature film, I was working with a co-writer and a producer and a script coach. And then when I got to work on the graphic novel, it was really, I could really take the story back again. So it was much more a more autonomous, how do you call it? Yeah, so I had more creative freedom, and that really helped me kind of reevaluate the storyline. And I thought, okay, it's getting too complicated. I should go back to the basics and make it simple again. And that really helped me when I started rewriting the script again when the book was finished. It really helped me to go back to, okay, so I know this is the core of the storyline, and we have to do some cuts in the storylines for the feature film because it's getting too complicated. So I think writing the book really helped me to also feel more confident about the story that was going to be turned into the feature film, because both were new to me. I'd never written a screenplay for a feature before, and I'd never written a manuscript before, which was also a whole new thing. But it was, yeah, so right now, production, it's we're at the stage where the screenplay for the feature film is almost finished. So some couple rewrites, and then we hopefully can start storyboarding. When the film will go into production, I don't know. It's really hard to predict.
All right, thank you. Tigran, about Zako, did you collaborate with the graphic novel's creator in order to make sure that his creative vision would be combined with yours in the film?
For a film, he come and we starting work with him he's an art director of the project, and he trying to bring his character for animator because in a graphic novel there's many freedom and drawing. Maybe sometimes they are different page to page, but for animator he need give us more clean characters for working them, and he's starting work on a concept art of the project. He's starting of main characters, and after that we trying to have some expedition to do environment for the environment sketches and layout for the film with Tigran.
I see, thank you. Marlene, currently you are directing your debut animated short, Trouble in Mind, right?
Yes.
Which got selected for a European Short Pitch and won Best Pitch. Congratulations. Can you tell us more about this project?
I was hoping you have a different question for me, because this project, it's very painful to talk about. So this is my short film. It's called Trouble in Mind, and currently we had to pause the project because of financial difficulties. So I've been working on this film for 7 years now, I think, and so we're in production and the money ran out. So now we have to find new funding. So it's it's a very personal story, of course. So it's a bit it still hurts. So maybe you have a different question for me.
What can I say? Good luck.
Oh, thank you.
And Fermin, based on your graphic novel Buñuel in the Labyrinth of the Turtles, the animated film of the same name was nominated for several awards and won some prestigious ones, such as a Goya Award and the European Film Award for Best Animated Film. Would you say that this kind of publicity and these honors helped people discover the graphic novel?
Sí, evidentemente. Ganar un premio de esa categoría hace que la gente ponga rostro a un dibujante de cómics. Los dibujantes de cómics somos bastante anónimos. Incluso dibujantes de cómics muy conocidos como Hugo Pratt, de Corto Maltés, la gente no lo reconoce por la calle, no lo reconocía. Somos gente que trabajamos en nuestro estudio y no somos conocidos públicamente. El hecho de ganar un premio de estas características hace que la gente te conozca y que tu libro se venda muchísimo más. La primera edición de Buñuel en el laberinto de las tortugas se publicó en 2008 y pasó muy desapercibida de cara al gran público, a la gente que no lee cómics habitualmente. Pero una vez que se hizo la película, se editó una nueva versión a color con la paleta de colores de la película, y esa edición de Penguin Random House llegó a muchísima más gente y le sirvió de una gran promoción el hecho de ganar premios para vender muchos más libros. Evidentemente, si se habla de un libro, se va a vender ese libro.
Yes, of course. An award of this category makes known also of a film and an animation film and a graphic novel that have the same name, gives a lot of credit to the graphic novelist as well, and actually connects the face to the graphic novelist, because even in the past, like big names like Hugo Pratt were not known visually. So yes, the publicity is huge, and the example is that the graphic novel that Fermin created was published in 2008. It was going quite slow until the movie was created, and he made a new publication with a colored with the colors of the movie in 2019, which was a very big success, and it's actually it's a big addition. So yes, of course, this kind of publicity is huge.
Thank you very much. That's all from me. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, thank you very much. It's been very interesting, all the questions and answers. There is a producer in Spain, actually, that co-produced Buñuel in El Laberinto de las Tortugas and also Arrugas, Wrinkles, that states that making a movie based on a comic book, it's easier because you already have a lot of the pre-production made. I suppose he speaks like from the economy of mediums. So since there are many producers here, I just wanted to ask if this is so, if it's true that when you do a movie based on a comic book, you have a lot of the pre-production made, or what you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think it would be really nice if that were the case, but unfortunately, if you adapt a graphic novel to an animated film, you have to do pre-production for the film, because the designs and the world, it has to be adjusted to fit the animation world. So more often you have to completely redesign the characters to make them animatable. You have to make the designs, you have to do character sheets, and also the style will have to be changed so that it can be, that it's suitable for animation. So I don't think it's, I mean, I think you have already a lot of concept art, so I think in a sense there is pre-production already done, so you have the world, you have world building, you have your characters, but then the pre-production process of the film has to start, and that's a completely different process.
Bueno, en mi caso no es tan así, tan fácil como el cómic está hecho, y la película va a ser muy fácil porque ya vamos a hacerlo como que sirva el storyboard. En el caso de Arrugas sí que es muy literal la traslación del cómic a la novela gráfica, pero en el caso de Buñuel, en El Laberinto de las Tortugas, preferimos darle una vuelta con el guionista y hacer algo que se saliese del cómic. Preferimos añadir material y investigar un poco sobre la vida de Luis Buñuel, su infancia, la amistad con Ramón Gacín, que en el cómic yo lo obvié, pero mi reunión con Elige Montero, el guionista de la película, era hacer algo que se saliese un poco de la película, que se complementasen. Por lo tanto, rehicimos muchas partes del cómic, no lo usamos de una forma tan fiel.
So, in my case, was not so easy. We had to start from scratch and redo many things. Also, we had the time to investigate more in the life of Buñuel, so they had to redid much of it. So yes, in Arrugas, Wrinkles that you mentioned could have helped, but in Labyrinth, in Buñuel, in the Labyrinth of Turtles, it actually a lot of redesign has been done, so no, it was not so easy.
In general, I agree with my colleagues, but I want to say one more thing. When you're starting adapting a graphic novel to animation, it's sometimes hard because you want to change something, and artist who make the book, it's maybe for him it can be not acceptable way, but when you work on animation film, you need work with different tools. So sometimes it's happening, and it's maybe help for understanding the story, visual character, but for animation it's different, I think.
Anyone else?
Questions?
Just a question to Marilyn and Tigran. I would like to ask, even if it sounds a little bit too technical, I can understand that transporting something to another media must be very demanding. But can you tell us with a simple statement why it is difficult to go from graphic novel to animation? Why? Why it's difficult, exactly? Excuse me. Look, from my own point of view, I'm asking from you know, from a professional paranoid point of view, okay? But I can understand that if I would transfer, how do you say, adapt one of my graphic novels into animated film, I should prepare very clean models, character designs, etc., and everything. But in the end, characters should be the same characters, okay? So it depends on how do you mean difficult? You mean making the characters rotating, for example? The rotating model sheets are very difficult to do, or expressions, or facial expressions, or moving body expressions, or what?
Can I say, I don't think it's difficult, it's challenging, which is a very interesting part of our work, because when you take one character from one medium and bring it into another, you need starting about his movement, his voice, his silence, and for that you need to work a little bit differently. And I think for me, maybe it's difficult, but it's challenging, which is a very interesting part of our work, what we are doing. So if you wanna, from technical side, it comes from style what you take for your film. Maybe a book is done in 2D, in traditional hand draw illustration, but film it can be three-dimensional, or I don't know, cut out and different style. So difficult come from a style what you choosing for making your film. It's a little bit technical and different from that side.
I'm actually going to stop us here. This has been wonderful. A round of applause for our panel here, please. So we will be back with our next panel in 5 minutes. Thank you.
your head, but I'll wait till everything I'll fall.
We are back again with our next panel with the theme International Co-Productions, the challenges of international co-productions, and we are very, very happy to have with us the most, let's say, professional producers and moderator for this discussion, because they have such a big experience in international co-production. So let me introduce our panelists. We have the pleasure to have with us Vivian van Vletteren from Belgium and Olivier Catrin from France, moderated by Vicky Micha, who is Greek. And because all of them, they have such a long curriculum, please let me read it. So, Vivian van Vletteren has over 32 years of experience in film production. She is the founder and CEO of Vivi Film, an independent Belgian production company, and co-founder of animation studios Sousa. Her credits include, amongst others, Les Triplets de Belleville and The Secret of Kells, which were both selected as Academy Award nominees, as well as series such as Minuscule 2 and Plateau Invasion. In 2009, she won the Cartoon Movie Tribute Award of European Producer of the Year. Today, Vivian has animated series and features in different stages of development, financing, and production. Olivier Catrin. Olivier Catrin, que j'appelle Catherine, et c'est pas correct. It's not just, okay. So, Olivier Catrin created the production company Les Trois Ours in 2008 and produced, among others, Kiki of Montparnasse, which won a César for Best Short Animation Film. Today, he is a freelancer producer of international co-production projects and animation consultant. He is teaching animation production and film history à l'INASUP, au Sciences Po. Et voilà, c'est tout pour Olivier. Et je passe now my friend Vicky. So Vicky, it's too long. I'll tell about you that you are the founder of Asterisk. Okay, she has been working for the past 12 years on films that have premiered at festivals such as Cannes, Berlin, Toronto, Rotterdam, Vision du Réel, and has collaborated with over 90 companies from 20 countries on more than 300 projects on development, financing, and marketing, and has developed international know-how and a strong network beyond the Greek borders. So I think she's the best to moderate this discussion. So today, Amid Rasel Kiselet was supposed to be with us in this panel, but unfortunately, he had a problem with his flight, and he will arrive this evening. So, what we decided with Olivier, who is a very nice friend of Animasyros, is tomorrow Olivier Catrin has a great masterclass. So I invite all of you to join this masterclass. And after the masterclass, he will have a very short discussion with Amit. So we can have his opinion coming from Israel and see how the challenge of co-production goes on in his country. Voila, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be with you. And I will start with my questions to our guests. So my first question is, how do you establish connections with co-producers? How do you find partners? Where do you look for them? Or where you used to look for them? Because I'm sure now that you have a very big network, but how did it start somehow?
Hello, thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be here. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. How do you look for a partner? For me, it always starts with the project itself. It means like you have a project, and in function is if it's a project that I'm developing, I'm looking on the market, saying like, okay, what is my target audience? Which market is it made for? Because I know that within different countries there's different cultures. So, and also looking like, okay, this kind of style, where will it fit? And then I go start looking for partners. I do have a quite broad network of partners, but I don't like to change a lot of partners. I like to work to establish long-term relationships with the people I'm working with, because you get to know each other, and it's very important to get along. And yeah, there are some places like Cartoon Movie for movies, Cartoon Forum, Annecy, other markets like these ones, where you can go and pitch your project, because I think that is the most important thing to looking for partners. Pitch your project and get interest from other producers, talk with them and see, get to know how their funding works, because that is also very important. Because if you find a country that has a low cost in making the movie, and like Belgium is a very expensive country, then there's like a balance that is not equal. Then you need to have a lot of money, like European money or MGs, that you can spend elsewhere. So yeah.
Hopefully my answer will be very different. Maybe because I'm more focusing on short films, and also because I'm a freelancer. So I'm starting from meeting people. So first, I want to meet some directors I want to work with, so it comes from the director. Then I look at the project. Of course, I need to be convinced to fall in love with the project, and to have the feeling that I can find a possibility to produce it. Because I don't have any production company, so I have to find a partner, a production company to produce it in. So that's the second step. And then, for the partners, I like to change. It's really connected to the project. So, as I'm doing international co-productions, I'm producing foreign directors. There is just one exception. I'm producing one French director, but should stay an exception. So, most of the time the project is connected already to an existing producer, so I have to meet him and to see if we can work together. And then, together, we are looking for some possible other partners. But it also depends on the position we have in the project. So, most of the time it is the main producer who decides, who's looking for some partners. And sometimes I'm in the position of main producer, and sometimes not. So also it depends of that. So how do I do? Because if I stay at home, nothing happens. Or sometimes yes, because people are contacting me. So I'm traveling, I'm meeting people, I'm doing some workshops to develop some projects in some countries. I'm doing all these kind of things, some coaching. So I'm able to meet some new directors that I want to work with. But there is also some directors I want to work with because I know them for years. And so sometimes I meet them and I say, okay, maybe you would like to work with me. And things happen like that.
for the partners, I think in my field I know most of the short film producers. When I'm doing some feature films, it's a bit different. So most of the time I have to discover people and to try.
I'm
we
with
can
Vivian
work
on that.
together.
I like to work with the same people. But sorry, before I go to the next question, I forgot to ask. It would be nice to know who is also in the audience, so we know, how to proceed with things. So, are there any producers? Only few, okay. And the rest are like directors mostly. Okay. Anything else that I should know? That we have writers. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So I go to the next question, and then we will adapt. What would you say is the most? Okay, this is a very broad question, but say whatever comes first to your mind. What is the most challenging factor of a co-production? Could you share some of the most difficult obstacles you had to overcome? I know there are many.
I cannot say there aren't any. There are a lot of obstacles to overcome. So it depends on where you are in the production process. If it's the first contacts, well, it's the feeling you got with those other people. You talk a lot, you discuss a lot on how to make it, how to finance this, just to feel how deep the water is. If it's not very deep and you are on the same wavelength, then you can go for it, but it doesn't assure you a smooth production. And I must say, in my 32 years, I think, of experience I didn't have any production that went smoothly. Yeah. So there's, and every time I say, well, I'm not gonna fall in that pit again. No, you have another pitfall in which you fall. So, I mean, and then he said, okay, I'm not gonna do this again. But anyways, I mean, I'm very proud of the films I've made, I co-produced, and I can tell stories. If you have a couple of days, I can tell you stories of all the things that went wrong, but of all the things that went right. Like, we are finishing a movie now, Titina. It will come out beginning next year in France and Belgium. It's going to be released in October in Norway, because it was a Norwegian-Belgian co-production. We decided on 2 partners because we thought it would be easier, because the more partners you get, the more difficult it gets. And even then, you get at some point frustration, and difficulties, because the film was supposed to be finished in June. Well, today we are delivering the last images because they're asking for artistic retakes, and that's okay, as long as you're within the limits, but the film is going to come out on October 15th. So, I mean, and then you think like, I didn't expect it to be that way. So, yeah, it never goes smoothly, I think, but maybe you have another experience, I hope so.
No, but no, just a second before. Which is the point that you would say in the process? And I have an answer for that. Yeah, of course. But in the timeline, let's say, from the time you meet them to the point that you deliver the film, when is it the worst to discover that things are going wrong?
When you're going over budget. And even if you have a big budget, we're still in Europe. I've made movies from, the smallest one was 2.5 million euros, but the biggest one were 8.6, 9.3. So, and there's always a point, even if you have more money, there's always a point where you don't have enough money, where you go over budget because you start something, especially I think in traditional animation, you start drawing and then you go on a certain level, but you financed your film to make an 8 million euro movie, but then the quality goes up and up because everyone is working so hard and so good that at the end you say like, okay, we'll never make to draw 1.25 seconds a day, and you only reach 1 second, but that's 25% less. So that means your budget is up. And this always, I think the most difficult point is the money questions at one point when you're in the middle of your production. I heard Marlene Spy saying, like, for her short movie, well, they stopped because they're out of budget. Here we go again. So I think for a producer, it's really important that you keep an eye. I make weekly reports on progress and financing. We even got an external controller on it to be able and to be sure that we are reporting every time. Yeah.
All of this is true. But I think doing international co-production, there is many other opportunities to have some problems and difficulties. And first, it starts from the understanding of what are the rules in the country of your partner. It's not so obvious. If you are used to work with the same countries, after one or two films you understand, but sometimes the rules change. So to spend some time to understand how it works in the other country is very important. And the second thing is also what is your co-producer is able to do or not. What does he want to do? And what would be the problems? Also to spend some time to understand all these things. Also all his obligations that maybe are not connected to the film fund, but it could be other things. So I think to spend some time to understand all this kind of thing is very important. And when you know that, you can start, and you speak about money, for instance. But another thing I would say is communication, because there is always some problems during the film, something you don't expect, so you have to solve them, and there is, so you have to talk. And the best way, maybe the only way to talk about this is to talk directly, not to write emails. If you write email, you're getting lost, and problems are getting worse and worse. So I think communication is the same with the director. Communication is to explain what's happening and where does the problem comes from, and all these kind of things. So most of the time, problem I've seen is not understanding what are the rules for the other, and miscommunication. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Or bad intentions?
But no, I never saw that.
No, you never?
And I had some very nice and smooth co-productions sometimes. That it happened, yes.
But going back to the criteria, how you choose co-producers, and mentioning my bad intentions, not mine, but the bad intentions I have experienced, do you also do some sort of research on the financial capacity of these people? I mean, if you work with them regularly, they kind of become your friends. At a certain level, you know what is happening with their company, with their lives, but if it's someone new, and if it's a big budget thing, how do you deal with that?
I would start to answer. Yes, because I said at the beginning that I choose the director, but I don't choose the producer. So, of course, you have to know about the producer, but it's a small world, so you can talk to other people, and they know they have their own experience with the producer. So you know more or less. Is there some financial problem on the other side? It's difficult to know sometimes, but you know how people work. They have their reputation, so you can manage with that. No?
Yes, of course. If it's someone that I don't know, and I like the project, and we're talking, and things are like going okay, this could be a possible co-production. My lawyer checks everything. Yeah. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, good. Good. Lawyers are good as well if they come early and not late. Okay, so to the next question. If you, I don't know if you all have ever been to these kind of workshops, European workshops like EAVE, ACE and Eurodoc that train producers, but there is always this saying that co-production is like a marriage. Be careful, it's not something that you will get out of, easily at least. So, true, false, why?
I always say that it's like a marriage. I say that in the beginning. Okay, we're getting married. We're going to sign a contract, and it's not worth to sign a contract of 100 pages, because you always get a back door to leave a marriage if you want to. So I think it's a lot about trust, and maybe that's why we're talking about marriage, because you have to trust each other, that you're working in the same direction. I often say, like, okay, making a movie or a series or a film is like a big boat, and there's only one captain on the boat. He has a lot of people who can help him, but we need to get the boat safely in the port, so in the harbor. And for that, you need to work together, and you need to trust each other that everyone is going to do his job. So a marriage or whatever, or a vessel, I mean, yes, it is. And actually the film is your baby. And so you're going to make a baby, and once that the baby is there, you're going to release it and say, okay, it has to live its life now and see what the film is doing. And sometimes I never had a really divorce in film, I mean. No, but we had very difficulties within, and it's communication, as you said, and I think you can solve a lot with that. But for me, I can compare it to a marriage, so I'm wondering what Olivier thinks.
Yes, more or less the same. You start with the same desires, dreams, and hopes, and then comes misunderstanding and miscommunication, all these kind of things that happens in real life. But hopefully it's for a short time, 2-3 years, or not more than that. So there is always an ending. So you can start again. Yeah. But sometimes, yes, 2 or 3 years can be a very long time, yes, of course. But it's not only with a co-producer, it's also with the director, for instance.
No, certainly. The director is also very difficult. It can be a very difficult relationship, but bad co-production, very nice. But the difficult co-production is something that keeps you awake at nights, and like it's probably a bad co-production is the worst thing that can happen to a producer. But let's go to the positive side. Why do you do it? What is in it for you? I'm talking to you because you are from Belgium and France. A Greek producer co-produces because we never have the money, never. Even for a small project, even for like a small feature film. But for a country that can actually finance its films, like your countries, why do you do it, and what is the attractive element?
I will start this time, okay? So, of course, the first reason is funding reason. We never have enough money in our countries to produce film, even for short film. Most of the time it's a problem. So money is the first thing, of course, the first motivation most of the time. The second thing is also skills, because it depends on the project you are doing. Sometimes you are looking for some specific skills. It can be for doing the films, but it could be also for other things. So you're looking for some partners also that give you some possibilities to really do the film. For instance, I'm actually co-producing a film with life-size puppets. It's not so easy to do these life-size puppets, so the question of skills is very important. And for the rest, it is for the pleasure of the adventure to meet other people and to discover all this. That's why I like to change partners also, and to work with other countries. A film is a kind of adventure, so there is very nice part in it because you are meeting new people, new ways to do things, and sometimes it's difficult, of course, but sometimes it's very nice, and it's feeding your life in a way, feeding your life.
Yeah, I agree. So it starts actually with money. If you need to do a co-production, I've been producing some shorts with only Belgian money. That was possible, but those are really small movies, like 5 minutes long, not longer. Otherwise, we cannot get enough funding. And it depends because we have different regions, so we can combine some regions in Belgium, but for a feature film or a series, you cannot do it alone in Belgium. You need to have a co-production. But I think it's also very important if you go for a co-production that you make your choice in function of your audience, because if you have a co-production, make it a co-production worthwhile that you already reach an extra territory. Like for Belgium, if you have a French-speaking director with whom you're working, it's good to have a co-production with France because that's a big territory. In the meantime, you get also Switzerland, Canada, you get a lot of French-speaking territories attached to the project. The same if you say like, okay, we're gonna co-produce with Ireland, like we did on The Secret of Kells, well, you get almost the whole world as your target. I made one co-production with Holland, which was a very short, I didn't know, it was 60-minute movie, 65 minutes, and it was a very small budget, but it did very well in Belgium and Holland because the subject was also very local. So, but it was a very big success. And I mean, so if you do make a co-production, be sure that you pick the good territories where there's money, there's funding, and there's a market for you.
So you do think that it is an opener for the market?
Yeah, yes.
For animation at least, because for some films it's not necessary. That
No, but for animation, like also going to Eurimage is important, so you only need 2 countries. I did Titina was a co-production with Norway and Belgium. We are now starting a new co-production, going the 1st of October in production on Valimon, which is also Norway and Belgium. This is the same way of doing it, and Norway has a very, very good funding system for Norwegian films, and they get a lot of money that they can spend anywhere they want. So actually they bring in a lot of money in Belgium, on which I can bring in a lot of money too. So that's how we can make it, the 2 of us. We're also starting very soon a film with Iceland. So for me, the whole Norway, Sweden, Iceland is new territory for me, but I like it a lot because they're also quite straightforward in how they think, how they want to produce. So yeah, I would avoid co-productions where you have 5 partners, because I've been in there and that's really, really difficult in communication.
Yeah, there are also power relationship between co-producers, and if you have too many partners, there is always someone who is really, really down. In France, we are also doing national co-productions because of regional funding, so it happens sometimes.
Yeah, sure, for Belgium and France, yes. And the cultural aspect, in terms of communication, in terms of creative input, where does it stand in these co-productions? First of all, how easy is it? I mean, we discussed about the relationship between co-producers, but there are other relationships with creatives around the project. I mean, I come mostly from live action, so I have a different standard in my mind about crews and how you work on set. But the same applies in animation with different professions. How do you manage that, basically?
I think people in animation are used to mix, to work with different nationalities, and they spend a lot of time together, so they have time to learn from each other, to learn to work together. So if they work together, most of the time it's okay. When it's difficult, it's when there is studio doing things in a country and a studio doing other things in another country, and the second one depending from the first one, and then you are far away, and there is always some problems connected to that. But it's more because you are far away. Of course, there are strangers, it's another country, they don't work well, things like that. But most of the time it's more because you don't know each other, and you don't have the time to make people make acquaintance or meet, exchange, things like that. So oftenly people doing the go-between are more comfortable with the situation, in my experience.
Well, I only have my Studio Suda, since 6 years now. Yeah, and we've just started a new studio in Ghent because it's easier if you have your own studio to work with. If you do co-production, there are some points. I know in France they have a lot of points according to the task, but the directors often, they look for people, head of departments everywhere in Europe, actually everywhere in the world. The world is their garden now in which they can play. And as it is a long term, if we are producing a feature film, well, you can count from the first images that starts with the layout, technical layout, and until compositing and finishing, you're at least 12 to 24 months busy. So we have animators working for us for 10 months, 12 months. They even come from Spain, they come from Italy, or sometimes they work at home, and we have developed our own production pipeline, and every studio, every animator logs in that production pipeline, which makes it easier to communicate. We don't communicate through email anymore. Everything goes through the production pipeline. Nothing gets lost. In the beginning, it was very difficult for artists, especially 2D artists. They were like, oh my God, this is like very structured, like in 3D projects. But now they are really happy with it because they feel much more comfortable in working, it's not being controlled, but being in a production pipeline that is steady and that is always functioning. So I think it's really nice that we can have different people coming from different countries working on one project. I like it. I like the influence of all those different cultures. I think it's a very big plus.
Okay, and one last question from me. What would be the top tip to share? What would be the most important piece of advice you would give to someone who is starting now, has a project and is dreaming of finding money in another country and doing a big, nice co-production with Norway, Sweden, Estonia?
As a director's point of view or producer's point of view?
Producers, of course.
We don't mind about directors.
Directors are not looking for the co-producers normally.
No, spend your time to find the right partner. It's very important to spend some time together. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Spend some time together and see if it works. It's the same for the director. You have to, at least you have to start with a desire to work together, because it will be difficult in any way. So if you have the desire at the beginning and you know well each other enough, it's possible. So the tip would be spend some time with some people. There is many places now to meet some partners, and so there is many opportunities. Just don't jump on the first person you meet, because that can be really difficult after. And that's all. And during it, yes, the same thing as exchange, talk, and things like that.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah. What I do, but I don't know for the others, is from the very beginning when people ask me, how do you choose your projects, even with directors, it's something that intuition is very important to me personally. Can I give it as a tip? I don't know, but it's something that I would do if I get to meet someone and I have a good feeling with that person, a good gut feeling, I go like, okay, we can talk further. If from the beginning you go like, oh my God, he's such a, or she's such a, then I go like, I won't spend another 5 years of my life with arguing on or not having the same directions. So for me, intuition has always been very, very important in all relations, working relations and other relations I've been having, and I think a lot of people have intuition. I would say follow your intuition in a first step, and then a good lawyer. I think. I have a very good one. It took a long time, but for everything I checked with him, and he always said I had a process in Germany and I had to go. Someone attacked me, and a project that was done for 5 years, and all of a sudden he was there. And I was like, what is happening? And then you have to dig, and then he said, okay, let's work up front. And I never had anything because they can mediate. If you have a good lawyer who is a good mediator, he's going to solve the problems for you if it gets too nasty with the other lawyer, and then, yeah. So, but first step, intuition, that you don't need your lawyer too much.
I don't have this problem because I don't have a company. But that's also, I'm in other position because I find a project, so I come with a director and a production company, and then I bring it to another company. But I'm not connected to the company, only for the project. So I'm between the two projects. I'm here to solve problems. I'm the mediator myself, yes.
Difficult job.
It's nice.
Do we have any questions? What? Clapping? Okay. Okay.
Questions? Anyone? I have a quick one. Did you start with animation, both of you? Why are you in animation? What's keeping you in animation?
Well, it's a long story, but I'm going to make it short. When I was a child, I wanted to be an actress, a singer, and a dancer. But my parents, they said, that's not a job. You will get a job first. So actually, I've always been drawing my whole life. I was into plastic arts. Then I went to study interior architect. And when I was 22, I finished all my school. And then I said, okay, how am I going to get again into, I was doing music, everything, but not as a hobby. And then I saw an announce they were looking for an assistant art director on a feature film, live action. I applied. I never was on a set before, and I got the job. And that's where it started. That was in '89, and in '90 I said I want to be producer. So I started my company in 1990. I was very young. I was only 24, and I said I'm going to make it. And it took me until '98 until I found animation. I said, well, that's what I want to do. And I saw the short movie, La vieille dame et les pigeons, the old lady and the pigeons of Sylvain Chomet. And I contacted them, and I talked to Didier, and he said, well, I have a project here. It's called The Triplets of Belleville. What do you think? And I said, oh, it's really nice. Let's do it. So, yeah, and I learned it the hard way by doing it. And I think it's a good way of learning it. There weren't any schools to learn how to do production. There is now, but I mean, if you have a good feeling and you have a will to do it, I think you can manage it.
Well, I didn't study cinema, anthropology, but I always loved cinema, and I decided to go to animation because I thought it was more nice people and many things to do, maybe things to build, things like that. But I didn't start as a producer. I started to work for the French Animated Film Association, so it was more programming, creating events like International Animation Days, things like that. And then I came to animation, so my first steps in production were in animation, and I love it, yes. It's very nice people.
Yeah. I have to tell you that animation producers are a different species. They are.
Like, they're really nice people.
They are very nice people, but they are, they are not. I have to say that. Sorry, they are not the same events. Like, they don't go to Berlin and Cannes necessarily. Like always. Am I wrong? I mean, maybe Cannes, but especially the French. But it's a different, circuit. It's a different life, I think, even.
I agree, because when I first did live action, I went to Cannes, I went to Berlin, and I felt lost because there's so much superficial things going on. I think I felt home immediately as soon as I was into animation with those people. There was like a deeper connection, I think. I don't know why, because, yeah.
It's
And it's
smaller
very
as well. It's
international
smaller.
also, because every animated film can be dubbed, and it's still, it can take.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
While you have your actors and you want to have famous actors, but you don't need that in an animation movie, I think. I think it's like if you go to Annecy, if I want to speak to someone from DreamWorks, it's possible. I mean, if I go to Cannes, it's like, you get.
Yeah. There is
So,
a very strict hierarchy in Cannes, yeah. I agree with that.
It's time for you to come bring your experience on the animation side here in Greece.
Who?
See?
Me?
You'll have a much better time, I'm telling you.
Well, I
We're
tried,
so
people,
much
I
more
tried.
fun
We
people.
don't have any money. Call the Greek Film Center. Sorry. we're
Okay,
recording.
I want to thank you all. We've run a little bit over, but this has been an incredible conversation. Thanks for sharing all that with us. Marinetta, I will let you close the night here.
Oh, really? Should I? Okay, thank you very much, all of you. It was fantastic, very vivid, very animated. And see all of you tomorrow. We keep going. We have 3 more days with you. We have masterclass in the morning, and in the afternoon we have museums and the festivals. So be here. Thank you. And now that we finished with the